Dave knows how.
Alright, so now that we got the tractor split apart, let's take a look inside and see what we got. And I can tell you ahead of time, this is not what I expected to find. So, we're going to move the camera in a little bit closer, and we're going to look at the engine side of things where the clutch, pressure plate, and everything else is located first. Then we'll flip around and we'll take a look at the transmission side. Okay, let's bring the camera in a little bit closer so you can get a good view. Okay, so here we go. Get rid of that thing. Okay, so here we go. We're looking inside the motor end. This is the pressure plate. These are those fingers. That's what I referred to them as, fingers. They're basically the throwout bearing. When you push a clutch in, it pushes the throwout bearing against these fingers. Sorry about that, I hit the camera. And that pushes these in, and that releases the clutch. Now, in the previous video that we looked at, and you can go back and check that out if you want to, where we ran the bore scope up inside the transmission to do an inspection, it looked as if a couple of these fins were actually split down the middle, and as you can see, that is not the case. I've even gotten the magnifier out and got down and looked really close at each one of these, and they are not split down the middle. What I was seeing on the bore scope was grease residue that had ran in a straight line down the middle of a couple of these fingers, due to centrifugal force of this thing spinning around. It went straight down the middle, and on the camera it looked like that it was a split line, but in actuality it was just grease. And when I took this apart and wiped it, it came right off. So I mean, I guess that was a good thing, maybe. You know, I mean, basically it meant that this wasn't as bad as what I thought it was, which I guess is a good thing. Anyhow, that doesn't necessarily mean that we don't need a clutch job, okay? That was just part of the problem. So let's flip the camera around the other way and look at the other end. Okay, so, you know, looking at the other end, we got, this is the throwout bearing, okay? It's basically a thrust bearing. When you press the lever down, the clutch pedal down, this fork goes this way, and it pushes this entire thing this way, and that pushes in the clutch. It only has to move a very little bit, and then when you let off the clutch, it returns. Okay, it's got a spring on the bottom. We're gonna try to disconnect that spring if we can. Reach down here with a pair of pliers and get that spring off of there. And now what we can do is we can pull this whole assembly off. Okay, and there it is. So now we're down to the input shaft for the transmission, which is splined. And these splines are what the clutch actually sets on. Now, I've already had this off, okay? This was packed full of grease to make it slide on this right here. We still got some dirt, grease, and debris. We've got a tremendous amount of rust up inside of here. We're gonna clean this up. We may even try to wire wheel some of this and get some of this rust out of here, so it's you know, in a little bit better condition. Looking at the bearing, you can hear that bearing. It's pretty noisy. It's when you apply pressure down on it and rotate it, we're trying to feel for humps, bumps, and vibrations. And I can feel a very slight bit of vibration. Plus, with the noise, that's telling me that this throwout bearing is bad. Anyhow, we've got a replacement throwout bearing to go in here. Actually bought a new carrier. This is called the carrier. This is the bearing. The bearing is pressed onto the carrier. We bought a new carrier and a new bearing just in case we got into this thing and found out that we needed a new carrier as well. I didn't want to be in the middle of this thing and have to wait 30 days for parts if things went crazy. And the price of the carrier was cheap enough that I just went on and bought one. All right, so flip back around to the other side. We're gonna go ahead and pull the pressure plate out. It's got 246 bolts in it. And we've got 2 bolts left to get out. And there's the pressure plate. And you can see there's a lot of rust on this pressure plate. There's a lot of discoloration in here where it's blue, where this thing heated up. So we're going to pull that out. This is the clutch. I'm going to pull that out. The clutch actually doesn't look that bad. We're going to take the clutch now and we're going to move it over to the transmission side. So let's flip the camera around. We're going to move and put this clutch right up on there like that. This is basically how the clutch is mating up when a tractor is pushed together. The clutch, when it's engaged and it starts spinning, it will grip and actually start turning this shaft, and that sends power into the transmission to power the rear axle and the PTO. On a 2-stage clutch, this is a single-stage clutch, it has 2 discs. And the shaft has 2 sets of splines. One disc is on one set of splines, the other disc is on another set of splines. When you let the clutch halfway out, that first disc that's here engages and starts turning that inner shaft, and that engages the PTO. When you let the clutch out the rest of the way, the second one engages and it sends power to the transmission to power the rear wheels to go forward and reverse. And that's the difference between a single stage and a 2-stage clutch. This tractor has a single stage, single clutch. So we need to test this clutch and see if it's any good or if it's bad. So that's what we're gonna do now. Let's get set up to do that. Okay, so the first test that we're gonna do to check this clutch disc to see what the wear is, if it needs to be replaced. What we did, we took a piece of round metal. The dimension of it is not important, okay? I picked something that was easy to bend, that I had on hand. I could have went with a smaller diameter, larger diameter, it really doesn't matter. I bent this, I don't know, 2 or 3 inches. I basically measured off the front of this plate right here to right here. And we're gonna clamp this on there with this style clamp. So we're gonna put this right on here like this. Okay. Make sure it's holding on there pretty good. All right, there we go. All right, now you'll notice we got this piece of tape taped on it, this piece of white tape. So what we're measuring here is backlash. Now the specs on the backlash is 0.079. So it's 79 thousandths of backlash is what this thing is supposed to have. So what we're going to do is we're going to rotate this that way until this lines up with this first mark. We've got 2 ink pen marks on here that we've marked roughly 79 thousandths. It's actually a little bit wider than 79 thousandths if you go to the outside. If you go inside to inside, it's 79 thousandths. So we're gonna rotate this entire thing, this entire disc, with the shaft until it lines up. So we're holding pressure back on the disc this way, and we're rotating this shaft that way until we line up with the first mark. Now we're gonna hold the shaft still, and we're gonna rotate the disc and see how far it rotates. Wow. See how far that rotates? That should not rotate that far. According to the specs, it should not rotate more than 0.079 inches or 2 millimeters. Clearly this rotates a lot further than that. So this clutch is worn. Now the next thing that we're going to test is going to be the wear of the pads. So we're going to take our measuring instrument here, and we're going to use this end to measure with, and we're going to measure the depth. If you look on this disc, you'll see where the pad is riveted on there. We need to measure at a minimum 10 of these rivets on both sides. So this side and the other side. So let's measure, we'll measure, here's a shallow one right here. Let's measure this rivet right here, and we'll see what that is. We're gonna stick this out a little ways. We're gonna stick it in there, and we're gonna push it down and then take a reading. Okay, so we're at 0.107. Now if we read the spec, it needs to be a minimum of 0.012. So in that regard, this disc is fine. It's not worn. It's in great shape. Let's check the other side. We'll flip it around, stick it on this way, and we'll check the other side. Now, keep in mind, you're supposed to check at least 10 of these rivets all the way around. So if you check every other one, that's probably 10. I don't know that to be a fact, but it probably is. So on that rivet on the other side, we're measuring 0.120, still well within the limit. Plenty of meat here. So the clutch is not worn as far as the disc pad itself. However, the backlash is definitely not within spec. All right, so hopefully you'll gain something out of this video. Even if it's just David don't know what the heck he's doing. Now these are actual numbers right out of the service manual for this specific model tractor. Now, this specific model tractor is in line with the L2501, maybe the L3301, I'm not sure. The L3301 may have a two-stage clutch, I'm not real sure. But even on the two-stage clutch, when it's a dry clutch, two-stage clutch, these tolerances apply to those clutches as well. But basically, I just wanted to show you how to measure those tolerances and a good way to measure them. You know, this clamped on the side of there gives me a definite reading. Like I said, you don't have to use anything this thick. I probably could have just found a piece of scrap solid wire and bent it and clamped it on there, and that would have been fine. A coat hanger, wire coat hanger, if you can find them anymore. I mean, most everything now is plastic, but if you can find a wire coat hanger, that would have probably worked just as well too. An old welding rod, you know, you could bend that up, clamp it on there, and that would work just as well. Just throwing some ideas out there that you can use to get the job done. I've already made up my mind that I was going to replace this regardless, because I'm not going this far and not replace it. All right, let's close this video out here, and we'll get on with something else in the next video. I hope you guys will stay tuned, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.